Hello and welcome to How Not to Play, the channel where I play Pokemon badly. Today we're going on another exciting pack lock through Pokemon Violet, but this time using Obsidian Flames as our booster pack. If you haven't seen my previous pack lock videos, I will take this single booster pack of Obsidian Flames, and whatever Pokemon I get inside are the only Pokemon I can use for the entire game. Typical Nuzlocke rules also apply, in that I will not be using items during battle, I will not be over-leveling the next objective, and if a Pokemon faints, it is dead and cannot be used for the rest of the run. So let's open up our booster pack and meet our first challenge. So unfortunately, I do not have a camera set up at this time to do a live pack opening, so I found this virtual pack simulator online and will be using this to decide my team. And for our team, we have pulled Swablu, Snubbull, Togedemaru, Glimmet, Magnemite, Paldean Wooper, Floatzel, a Lycanroc, specifically Midnight form, a Lanoon, and last but not least, Toedscruel. Now, the Pokemon connoisseurs among you may notice that some of these Pokemon do not exist in the base game. This includes Snubbull, who can only be found in Blueberry Academy's terrarium in the post-game, and Togedemaru and Lanoon, which simply don't exist in the game at all. Well, I do have a plan for that, but first let's go ahead and get some of the introduction out of the way. For our starter, we are picking Sprigatito. It has the fewest type weaknesses to our team, and this will force Nemona into taking Quaxly, which, while tied for most type weaknesses with Vikoko, has the least number of type resistances. So Quaxly should be the easiest one to fight against. But not with Sprigatito. Since he wasn't in our pack, he goes right in the box, and we head out to Area 1 to find our first actual Pokemon, Pippin the Buizel. Not too far away, we also find a second Pokemon, our Paldean Wooper, Frodo. Now, I'm sure you've guessed my naming convention for this video by now, so feel free to put it in the comments below, and hit those like and subscribe buttons while you're down there, because it really helps us push the channel out into the algorithm. Now, someone that does always follow me is Nemona. She leads our first fight with Quaxly, and I start with Pippin. Now, water does resist water, but at this point in the game, Pippin doesn't actually know any water moves. So we just trade blows until Quaxly falls, and Nemona brings out her newest Pokemon, Pawmi, and immediately cheats by terastallizing it, knowing full well that I can't do that yet. But I have a cheat up my sleeve as well, as I swap in Frodo, who is a ground type, meaning that electric attacks do 0 damage. And since Thunder Wave is the only attack her Pawmi knows, this is just a free win. We finally make it to Uva Academy, and after a brief altercation on the main stairs where Nemona gives us a Terra Orb and shows us how to use it, we make it inside, where after a while the day arrives for our true adventure to begin. But not here. Our adventure actually begins where my last video ended, in Pokemon Scarlet. Having installed the DLC, we talk to Ms. Briar to head out to Kitakami, which is just our first stop. We're forced to do the intro, including fighting both Carmine and Kieran, before he runs off to wait for us at the first signpost. But I get a phone call from Director Clavel saying that the principal of Blueberry Academy wants to see me, so I abandon Kieran and head back home to meet Director Cyrano, who takes us out to his school, which exists in a giant terrarium under the sea. Inside this terrarium are 4 unique biomes: the Savanna biome, the Coastal biome, and the Canyon biome. But only one interests me today, and that is the Polar biome, because that is where we can finally find our Snubbull. Unfortunately, catching her is only the first step, because as you can see, all the terrarium Pokemon are around level 65 to 70, which means they already out-level the Elite Four in the base game, so I can't just trade one straight over to my Violet Packlocke or I'd never get to use it. So for step 2, we fly back to Paldea, outside of Medali, where I can find a very special Pokemon in Ditto. Unfortunately, Dittos appear as other Pokemon in the overworld, but by locking onto Pokemon with the left trigger, you can see their nameplate, and eventually you find one whose name doesn't match the body, and voila, you have found yourself a Ditto. So now with Ditto and Snubbull alone in the party, we set up a nice romantic picnic and make a very tasty strawberry and jam sandwich for the egg power ability, and then just wait a few minutes for nature to take its course, checking the basket occasionally until, as if by magic, an egg appears. Now this egg is guaranteed to be a Snubbull because we use Ditto as the other parent, so from here we just trade it over to my Violet playthrough, replacing that worthless starter with a Pokemon that we can actually use. For the next 2 missing Pokemon, we head back to the Galar region in Pokemon Sword. The first one we come across is a Zigzagoon on Route 2, but it's all the wrong colors. Our card wasn't a Galarian Lanoon, so unfortunately we won't be able to use this one. But if I head over to the Isle of Armor DLC, I can meet up with Regina, who is obsessed with regional variants, and would love to trade my Galarian Zigzagoon for hers that can evolve into the Linoon that I pulled on my card. After taking down a couple of gyms and making it all the way to Route 8, I finally find myself a Togedemaru. It is a bit higher level though, so unfortunately we're not going to see them in action for a while, but we can transfer them over to Pokemon Home along with our Zigzagoon, only to find out that I can't import them into Pokemon Violet at all. Okay, well, that's 13 hours wasted. I guess I'll just have to find rough equivalents that are in the game. So for Lanoon, you would think looking through the Pokédex that the closest Paldean relative would probably be a Gumshoes, because they look alike. But while the base stat totals may be close, their distributions are completely different. The closest Paldean Pokemon is actually going to be a Persian. The base stat totals are relatively close and in mostly the correct places. For Togedemaru, it's a little bit simpler, if not as accurate, because the only electric steel type in all of Paldea is Magnemite. Yep, a second one. Now, Togedemaru's base stat total is closer to its evolved form Magneton, so I won't be evolving this one any further than that. So with all that out of the way, we head back to Pokemon Violet, where just outside of Mesagoza we meet a girl having a picnic, which reminds me to put that Snubbull egg into my party so that I can hatch it by running around a lot. Sure enough, a few minutes later the egg hatches and we add Gimli to the team. And I was astonished at this little guy's moveset. He starts out with 3 different elemental attacks, including Fire Fang, which absolutely sweeps Katie's gym. I wish I could say that our first Titan Cloth was any harder, but Frodo's Mud Shot, being super effective against the rock type, forces him to retreat pretty quickly. After powering up with Herba Mystica, I decide to Terrestrialize for the bonus damage to Frodo's ground moves. He does get hit pretty hard with a resisted Rock Tomb, which Arven's Shelter heals with Life Dew, a move which I have never before seen this Pokemon use. Ever. But hey, I'm not going to complain, as alternating between Shelter's Water Gun and my Mud Shot takes the Titan down in short order. Our next challenge is Brassius Grass Gym. Now he has 3 Pokemon, and Pippin would have to sit this one out, as he would take double damage from literally everything in there. So I'm going to need some extra help. I checked online and saw that Toad School can spawn in Area 1, so I went out to set up a picnic, making a ham and butter sandwich, and running around for almost an hour, making a second sandwich and searching even more, before deciding that the internet lied to me and I would have to find someone else. Unfortunately, the only other Pokemon from my pack that I can find below the level 17 gym cap is a Rockruff just past the first gym. So I trained Aragorn up as best I could, teaching him Fire Fang and praying he could somehow save this run. I ran the calcs, and a straight fight would never go in my favor. I had only one choice: Double Team. Mega Drain was super effective and would absolutely destroy Aragorn if it hit again, but an Oran Berry would heal just enough that he could take a third hit. Sand Attack would lower Petilil's accuracy even more, but Brassius went for Sleep Powder next, which Aragorn's Vital Spirit shrugged off. Raising my evasion once more, I determined it was time to go on the offensive, hitting 2 Fire Fangs, which Petilil unfortunately survived on a sliver before landing a second Mega Drain, healing back a lot of its health. But not enough, as a third Fire Fang took it out. Smoliv was in next, and I really couldn't swap Frodo in because I needed him to do as much damage on Sudowoodo as he could, and I couldn't spare the extra hits to Razor Leaf here. I had to let Aragorn die. But he dodged all of the incoming attacks and took Smoliv out with 2 Fire Fangs. Up next was the terror of my run, Sudowoodo, terrestrialized into a grass type to do super effective damage with Trailblaze. Aragorn tried for a burn with Fire Fang, but it didn't take. Dodging Trailblaze, he went for a flinch with Fire Fang, but it didn't take. Dodging Trailblaze again, Aragorn tried one more Fire Fang, but Sudowoodo finally connected and Aragorn fell. Gimli came in and his Intimidate, along with the damage Aragorn had already done, was enough to secure the gym badge. Now, looking back on things, maybe I could have swapped after the second dodge on Sudowoodo. I still had Frodo to clean up if Gimli couldn't finish him off.
I would have gone with you to the end.
I don't know. Let me know in the comments how you would have played this out, or if there was some way I could have planned things out better to have not needed a sacrifice at all. I know he wasn't on the team long, but this death really hurts. But the run must go on, and the Flying Titan Bombardier is next on the list. And since I just lost my Rock type, I needed a new encounter. So I rode Miraidon up near Levincia City where Magnemite spawn, and after catching Gandalf for my Magnemite encounter, I also catch one more which will act as my Togedemaru, Boromir. Once I found and taught him the TM Thunderbolt, it was time to face off against the Titanic Bird. Thankfully, this fight wasn't nearly as hard as Brassius, Bombardier going down to just 1 Thunderbolt. Phase 2 went roughly the same way, with Thunderbolt nearly killing the bird, and Arvinsnackly failed to finish it off with Smackdown, however, so I had to use a second attack to finish the job, earning not only our Titan badge, but Frodo's evolution into a Clodsire. I do a little bit of training with him in preparation for the raid on Team Star's Dark Base, teaching him the fighting move Body Press, which one-shots Yakumo's Poniard. The Starmobile has the Intimidate ability, which will lower Frodo's attack stat, making the low kick move I taught him do less damage than I was hoping. But he chips away with a few hits before getting low enough on HP that I swap into Gimli, which intimidates the Starmobile right back. After getting it into low HP, it starts opting for the special move Swift, which hits Gimli pretty hard, and I have to swap out again. Pippin comes in, and I try something a little sneaky. I use the move Soak, which will change the Starmobile's typing to water, except it has no effect. Apparently, the Starmobiles count as being terrestrialized and can't have their typing changed any further. I swap out to Gandalf anyway, still doing a good chunk of damage with Thunderbolt, even if it isn't super effective against the non-water type. After taking a heavy hit and getting some more damage in, I finally swap out to Boromir, who is able to get the last hit, dismantling the Starmobile and Team Star's Dark Squad. Just outside of Team Star's base though, I found a bunch of Swablu hanging out, so decided to catch one for my encounter. Welcome to the team, Sam! Before we face the next gym, Nemona wants to give us a warm-up. She leads a Rockruff, knowing that I'm still not over that loss, and forces me to kill him again with Pippin's water gun, before bringing out her Pawmi. Now since Frodo is immune to Nuzzle with his ground typing, I swap him in to handle the Pikachu wannabe with Mudshot. Finally, Nemona's ace, now evolved into a Quaxwell, comes out and starts using Workup to boost its attack and special attack, while Frodo uses the Trailblaze TM we got from Brassius to chip damage in while increasing his speed. Finally, Nemona uses a worked up, super effective, Terra boosted Water Pulse to kill Frodo. But his Water Absorb ability completely nullifies the attack, and Trailblaze continues to beat Quaxwell down, now attacking first from the multiple speed boosts to finish up the battle. Stepping just outside Levincia, I do some more training to hit Iono's level cap of 24, evolving Gimli into a Grand Bull in the process. I also set up a picnic and make a ham and butter sandwich to increase ground type encounters, giving me a better chance of finding my next team member. Sure enough, lazing under a tree, I find the Toad School I was looking for earlier, and one quick ball later, Mary is added to the party. His ground typing could be helpful in neutralizing Iono's electric type attacks, but Frodo's a ground type as well, and honestly, I feel like he can't lose, so I send him out to solo her entire team. Wattrel is immune to ground moves because of its flying type, but that makes rock moves like Rock Tomb super effective. Bellybolt is out next, and this thing has two attacks. Spark, which can't hurt me because of my ground typing, and Water Gun, which can't hurt me because of my Water Absorb ability. So I set up to +6 special defense with Amnesia before taking it out with Mudshot, but not before setting up a substitute first. This prevents any kind of status effects, like the attack drop from Intimidate, but most importantly, the flinch chance from Luxio's bite attack. Unfortunately, a second bite does take down the substitute before I can finish the pupper off with a second Mudshot. This means that Mismagius does have one shot with Confuse Ray, which of course hits. But I'm able to get out the substitute and start chipping away with Rock Tombs, because even though her Terra Electric type would be weak to ground attacks like Mudshot, her Levitate ability neutralizes them. Frodo does hit himself in confusion a couple of times, but his leftovers recovery is enough to keep him healthy. But because all the special defense boosts from Amnesia also apply to his substitute, it's able to tank all of her Hex attacks. I do have to put the substitute back up or risk getting confused again, but since she goes for a Hex instead of Confuse Ray, I am now safe behind my substitute to finish her off with Rock Tomb and win my third gym badge. To think, this gym that has caused me so much trouble in the past, completely walled by a single Wooper. Oh, thank you Iono for that call to action. Please do smash that subscribe button and leave a like on this video while you're down there. I would really appreciate it. Anyway, Mela's Fire Base is next, and in gearing up for it, we do evolve Pippin into a Floatzel, and this is where Aragorn would have evolved into a Lycanroc. R.I.P. buddy. Frodo, Merry, and Pippin, all being strong against fire, however, take down the Star Barrage faster than a hobbit can down a pint of Guinness.
This, my friend, is a pint. It comes in pints.
Oh.
I can get you one.
Mela's Torkoal has the Drought ability, which sets up Harsh Sunlight, making all her Fire-type moves do extra damage. But I taught Pippin Rain Dance for just this occasion, which has the exact opposite effect, weakening Fire and strengthening Water moves. And with his Terrestrialization boosting his water damage even further, Torkoal is shot down with a single Water Gun. Starmobile itself doesn't fare much better, screeching to lower Pippin's defenses, but taking huge chunks of damage from Water Gun, putting it in range for a priority Aqua Jet to seal her team's fate. The lurking Steel Titan is close by in the mines just north of Levincia, and since Steel is weak to fighting, and we taught Low Kick to Frodo to deal with Yakumo's Starmobile, we give him a try here too. It doesn't do as much damage as I was hoping, and he gets hit pretty hard with an Iron Tail, but a critical Low Kick puts him back in the running, and he cleans up round 1 fairly quickly. For round 2, Arven brings in his Toad School to distract Orthworm and soak up some attacks along with assisting us with Grass Knot. A few more Low Kicks and Frodo brings home the win. While we're here, there is another Pokemon from our pack, lurking deep inside the caves and tunnels beneath Paldea. Sniping Glimmet into our party with a Quick Ball, we proceed to do some training for the next gym, evolving Mary into a Toadskrull, Boromir into a Magneton, which is as close to Pachirisu as we can get in this generation, and finally Gandalf, with the aid of a Thunderstone, evolving all the way into a Magnezone. The latter of these is my choice for Kofu's Water Gym. Now Gandalf is a little slow, so Veluza hits first, but then goes down to a single Thunderbolt. I remember to Terrestrialize like I meant to do last turn before killing Wugtrio, and finally Kofu's Ace Crabominable doesn't even get a single turn in before getting put down like a rampaging Balrog. Atticus' Poison Base is up next, and Mary starts things off by mudshotting his Skuntank, and using a held Pecha Berry to remove the effects of Toxic, before finishing it off and bringing out Muck. But Mary is faster, and with the double stab bonus from Terrestrializing, he is able to finish off the noxious pile of goo in 2 hits. Revavroom is out next, and this little car is fast. But not as fast as Mary, who takes it down with a single Mudshot. I do swap out to Gandalf to face off with the Starmobile, however, as a spin out does laughable damage. Completely healed by his leftovers before pivoting off to Frodo. Flame Charge is resisted by the ground type, but then he crits with a rollout before taking the Earthquake that does way less damage than I had hoped. I stick with it though, taking more damage from spin out and getting the car down to almost half health with another Earthquake before I feel that I have to swap out. I bring Gandalf back in, who takes legitimately no damage from spin out, trading Thunderbolts for Flame Charges until the Starmobile finally goes down for good. With the level cap raised to 36, we can now evolve Golem into a Glamora, and Sam the Swablu into an Altaria. After ordering some rice balls, Larry fights us for the normal gym badge. Gandalf's iron defenses, on top of being naturally resistant to normal type attacks with his steel typing, means that he's not going to take too much damage, with leftovers healing what damage he does take. Now, fighting type moves like Body Press are super effective against all of Larry's normal type Pokemon, so Gandalf just squashes them one after another to bring home the badge. After that performance, Navona decides she wants another go at me, so I give her the same treatment. After a couple of flinches from Lycanroc, we get Iron Defense set up to one-shot the Pupper, and her Goomy also with Body Press. I do Terrestrialize to shed my Steel typing and its weakness to Palmo's Arm Thrust, but he goes down with a single Body Press as well, and her Ace, now fully evolved into Quavel, even with a Terra and Rain boosted Aqua Step, does pathetic damage and gets absolutely decimated by Thunderbolt. But I did notice while we were outside fighting that there were some Persian in the area around Medali, so I decided to grab one as my Lanoon replacement. And with Legolas in the party, my pack is now complete. Heading off to Rhyme's Ghost Gym, I wasn't entirely sure how to strategize this one, so knowing that ghost types are weak to dark attacks, I just loaded up my 2 fastest Pokemon with the strongest dark attacks they could learn, and kinda hoped for the best. Banette starts things off with a Sucker Punch to Pippin, but then falls to a 1-2 punch of Legolas using Foul Play, and Pippin finishing him off with Snarl, which as a multi-attack move has the effect of breaking Mimikyu's disguise as well. Mimikyu does get a slash in at Legolas, but then the crowd gives me an attack boost for the KO, and I have my pair sink into Houndstone, with the same strategy of Foul Play from Legolas, and this time a Crunch from Pippin, to take the dog out before he could even act. Mimikyu gets off another weak slash at Pippin, putting him into the yellow HP, before the crowd boosts my attack again. Rhyme sends out and terastallizes her Toxtricity into a Ghost type, which makes it weak to the same 1-2 punch, leaving her with just a Mimikyu that desperately lashes out at Legolas, putting him in the yellow as well. One final boost from the crowd ups my speed, not that I needed it, before Mimikyu joins the rest of his team in the afterlife. Crossing the desert on our way to the next gym, we meet up with the quaking Earth Titan Iron Treads. And by we, I mean Pippin, who practically one-shots the thing with Liquidation. Chasing it down for round 2, Arven catches up with his Scovillain to lend a hand. Pippin does pretty good damage with Liquidation, but gets a bonus, lowering Iron Tread's defense. Scovillain uses Scary Face to also lower its speed, and so Pippin goes first against the now slower Titan, hitting even harder than before because of the defense drop, and Scovillain finishes it off with the Fire Fang before it even knows what hit it. Finally making it to the Alfornata gym, Nemona wants to give us another warm-up. This time I lead with Boromir, the Togedim Magneton. Thunderbolt makes quick work of the pupper, and she sends out Sliggoo next. I swap in Gimli, who is immune to its Dragon Pulse, and takes it out with a single Play Rough. Clawmont is up next, who does get a paralysis off, but Gimli takes it out anyway with another Play Rough. Her Ace Quaquaval is up next, and I swap in Frodo with Water Absorb to nullify all of its attacks, except for the pathetically weak Air Slash. We trade blows with Trailblaze for a while, eventually taking the duck down. Finally able to challenge Tulip, I lead off with Gandalf, who sets up Iron Defense while taking barely any damage in return, most of which gets filled up by leftovers. Once he is stacked up to +6 defense, it's time to go on the offense with Body Press, which does more damage the more defense you have. Needless to say, this one-shots Farigarath, squashes Espathra, composts Gardevoir, and finally shatters Florges, coming away with a clean 7th badge. I wish I could say that Grush's 8th gym posed more of a challenge, but Golem's rock moves decimated his ice types. Frostmoth goes down to a single ancient power, but not getting the Omniboost proc, I switched to Power Gem for Beartick, one-shotting Titan, and even his Ace Altaria just barely survives one hit, certainly not two, finally completing our gym challenge. But before we head back to Mesa Goza, there are a few loose threads to tie up, including Ortega's Team Star Fairy Base. Once again, Gandalf is my choice here, taking out his lead as Azumarill with a Thunderbolt. Noxbun does get off of Baby Doll Eyes, lowering my attack, but Flash Cannon is a special move, taking the dog out in one hit. When Wigglytuff comes out, I take a turn off to set up Reflect to lower any physical damage coming in, before also taking it out with the Bash Cannon. The Starmobile's attacks do barely any damage at all thanks to Reflect, and Flash Cannon takes out huge chunks of its HP before Ortega decides to use a Confuse Ray, causing Gandalf to hit himself instead. He does snap out of it the following turn, getting in another huge flash cannon before Ortega confuses him again. But this time, Gandalf fights through the confusion to finish off the Starmobile and the Fairy Squad. Heading off to Castle Royale Lake for the final Titan fight, Sam heads out against Dondozo using Sunny Day to set up Harsh Sunlight. Now this will reduce the damage of Dondozo's water attacks to almost nothing. Now the Solar Beam attack normally takes one turn to absorb sunlight before firing off on the second turn. But in Harsh Sunlight, he can do both in a single turn, along with incredible damage to boot. Arven catches up to us for Phase 2 and we start with the same strategy, setting up the sun and destroying him with Solar Beam. Then Tatsugiri comes out and things get a little, well... Icy Wind goes off first and does insane damage. I try to do super effective damage back to the False Dragon Titan with Dragon Pulse, but it doesn't do nearly as much as I was hoping. Not able to take another hit like that, I swap Sam out and Gandalf. Tatsugiri takes out Arven's Greet, and Light Screen will reduce all of the Titan's incoming damage to hopefully give me a little breathing room. Not really having any other attacks, I fire off a couple of Thunderbolts for decent damage, before worrying that another Muddy Water attack could kill, and swap out to Frodo to absorb it. Tatsugiri uses Icy Wind instead as the light screen wears off. Fairly confident that Frodo can survive one attack, I queue up an Earthquake, and finally take down the last of the Titans. Which leaves only the last of the Team Star bosses before we break into the endgame. For Aerie, the fighting specialist, I lead with Mary, and her Toxicroak shudders in anticipation of an incoming one-hit KO move. So I oblige with Earth Power. Bringing in her main fighting core next, starting with Annihilate, I swap out to Gimli, who begins setting up with bulk ups, increasing his attack power and defense to the point that his leftovers are actually healing more than the incoming damage that he's taking. So after getting up to +6, we opt for Play Rough, a super effective move that easily one-shots Annihilate, Cassimian, Lucario, and even her Starmobile, putting an end to the last of Team Star's aces. With all that taken care of, it's time to head back to Mesagoza and take on the Elite Four. First up is the Ground-type specialist Rika. She leads off Wishcash, and I start with Mary. Because he's faster, a Seed Bomb takes her Pokemon out, no problem. Camerupt, being part Fire-type, is resistant though, so I Terrasilize Ground for an added boost to my Earth Power and one-shot it that way. Donphan is next, and so I Trailblaze to break its Sturdy ability, which prevents me from taking it out in one hit, before finishing it off with a Grass Knot. The speed boost from Trailblaze actually allows me to outspeed her Dugtrio, taking that out with a Seed Bomb, and finally her ace Clodsire comes out. Protecting against my Seed Bomb the first turn, but taking it on the chin the second, all the healing I've been doing with Shell Bell allows me to take his Earthquake with enough health left over for one final Seed Bomb to finish the sweep. Poppy is up next and leads with her Copperajah. Once again, I Terrasilize Mary for the extra attack bonus, and this time have him holding a Life Orb that I got back at Castle Royale Lake for a little extra boost so that I can take the elephant down in one shot. Corviknight comes out next, and anticipating a lethal Brave Bird attack, I swap it to Gandalf, who tanks it nicely. Body Press does a bit of damage though before he can get off a Thunderbolt to take the bird down, and Bronzong is her next Pokemon, which has the lethal attack Earthquake. So I switch in Samwise the Altaria to fly over it harmlessly. I've increased Will-O-Wisp's accuracy with a wide lens to ensure that it burns the Bronzong cutting his physical attack down to almost nothing, while spewing flamethrowers to melt it down. Poppy has her own Magnezone and brings it out, but Steel, being weak to Flamethrower, takes half his health in one go before he can set up Light Screen, meaning I need 2 more Flamethrowers to take it out for good, which leaves Poppy with just her ace, Tinkaton. Anticipating a kill with either Play Rough or Gigaton Hammer, I swap Gandalf back in, who resists both. But since his Steel typing is weak to Tinkaton's Brick attack, I then immediately pivot out to Gimli, who heals up the pathetic damage with his leftovers. Anticipating the super effective Gigaton Hammer attack, Gimli protects for the turn, nullifying any damage. And since she can't use that move twice in a row, I take the opportunity to throw out an Earthquake. After protecting against another Gigaton Hammer swing, one final Earthquake will decisively end the match. Calling out Larry to deal with me next, he starts off his new flying team with Tropius, who likes to set up the sun with Sunny Day, and Gollum takes the free turn to set up Light Screen. As we saw earlier, Harsh Sunlight lets moves like Solar Beam fire off in 1 turn instead of 2, but with Light Screen the damage is manageable, so Golem starts coating himself in Acid Armor to boost his defense for later turns, while held leftovers keep him relatively healthy. Once he's maxed out his physical defense, Golem switches to the offensive move Power Gem, purposefully not terrestrializing so that it takes 2 hits, timing it so that Sunny Day wears out at the same time as it's created. Staraptor is out next and gets off a close combat, which I easily survive thanks to my Acid Armor, before dying to Power Gem, bringing out Altaria. Being a special attacker, Golem sets up Light Screen to lessen the incoming damage before taking a nap to restore his HP back to full. Now while he's sleeping, Altaria does get a lucky critical hit, forcing me to repeat the process once I wake up, because I'll need the extra HP later on. Since I know that I will sleep for 2 turns, I terrestrialize on the 3rd turn for the extra power boost and take Altaria out, sending in Oricorio. I was hoping for any attacking move other than Teeter Dance, but Larry gets the confuse off.
What's Titus, precious?
Golem does fight through the confusion though, killing the bird and bringing out Larry's ace Flamigo. Once again surviving a close combat only because of his Acid Armor, Golem fights through the confusion to land a Power Gem and finish the fight. That's 3 down and only 1 to go, but hassle is quite the hassle, as I lead Golem against the flying dragon Noivern. My plan here was to take a hit and use Toxic Debris, combined with a Toxic Spikes attack, to set up a trap for all of his incoming Pokemon. Once I take Noivern out with a terrestrialized Power Gem, all of his incoming Pokemon will become badly poisoned, taking increasing damage every turn while I just stall out the game. But then Dragalge comes in and, being a poison type, wipes the field clear of all my poison spikes. I don't have a plan B. So, per my original plan, I swap Gandalf in to put up Light Screen against the special attacker, getting soaked with Hydro Pump in the process before pivoting out to Frodo, who absorbs it. Dragon Pulse does very little damage thanks to the Light Screen, and Earthquake almost kills Dragalge in 1 hit. After a second round of it, Dragalge does go down and Flapple comes in. It sets up Leech Seed, and I use Venoshock, which would have been a 1-hit kill had he been poisoned. But now it just barely hangs on even after a second one, and Dragon Rush did so much damage I can't keep Frodo in, or he'll get outsped and killed. So I swap in Gimli, who is immune to the Dragon-type attack, but doesn't really have anything on his current moveset that will do much damage. So I pivot out to Sam, who takes the incoming Leech Seed. Sam does outspeed and finishes it off with a super effective Dragon Pulse, bringing in Haxorus. which I had originally planned to Toxic Stall. Predicting he would use the super effective Dragon Claw on Sam, I swapped back to Gimli, who would be immune, which is when I remembered he has Intimidate, which lowers the dragon's attack stat. Knowing that Haxorus had a super effective move against Gimli in Ironhead, I swap out to Gandalf, who resists it. I had him then take a turn off with Protect to heal back some HP with Leftovers. Seeing the incoming Dark move Crunch, I then swap back out to Gimli, who resists it, but most importantly, getting off a second Intimidate. By repeating this process 5 more times, I'm able to get Haxorus down to -6 attack. Now Haxorus is faster than my dwarf, so I had to give him the best possible chance of surviving Ironhead, which he does handily with -6 attack. But I forget that Ironhead has a chance to flinch, which of course it does. Thankfully, in Haxorus' weakened state, Gimli is able to take another one and finally slay the dragon with a single super effective play rough. But it's not over yet, as Hassel has yet to send out his ace Baxcalibur. Once again, seeing a hard-hitting move in Icicle Crash, I pivot to Gandalf, who resists it, using Protect to take a turn off and heal with Leftovers, before pivoting back to Gimli to Intimidate, lowering Baxcalibur's attack and resisting the fighting move Brick Break. Taking a turn off with Protect to heal with Leftovers, I swap back to Gandalf to repeat the process ad infinitum until Baxcalibur is about as powerful as a dwarf's jump.
I cannot jump the distance, you'll have to trust me.
Once I'm confident that he can take an Icicle Crash without dying, I Terrestrialize and queue up a Play Rough, which has about a 15% chance to high roll and one-shot. But apparently Icicle Crash can flinch too. Gimli, being as sick of this 35-minute long fight as I am, dodges the next Icicle Crash and finishes off the fight with not only a high roll, but a critical hit, finally taking down the Elite Four. But wait, there's more! Gita is waiting for us at the top of the tower, and I'm not pulling any punches. I lead Gandalf against her Espathra, who tanks Lumina Crash fairly well, doing huge damage back with Thunderbolt. The second Lumina Crash hits harder because of the special defense drop attached to it, but another Thunderbolt takes Espathra down. Avalugg is out next, and Gandalf outspeeds, taking it out with a single flash cannon. Palooza is next, which is faster than Gandalf, getting a hit in with Liquidation before he's able to OHKO it with another Thunderbolt. King Gambit is up next, powered by his 3 fallen comrades, so I try a Body Press, but it's not enough. Thanks to the healing from my Shell Bell, I'm able to withstand a Kowtow Cleave before finishing the fight with another Body Press. But Gandalf's run is over, as I can't risk him taking any more damage. When Gogoat comes out, I swap him out for Gimli, whose Intimidate ability nicely cancels out the Ghost Bulk Up. We trade Horn Leech versus Fire Fang for a few turns, Gimli eventually getting the kill. Gita's ace Glamora is all that's left, and Gimli is in no shape to fight. Not knowing which ability Glamora will use to kill Gimli, I send out Frodo, who can reliably survive any of them. But most importantly, I now know that Gita will try to use the super effective move Earthquake on him the following turn. So I pivot to Sam, whose flying type makes him immune. Now this will bait Gita into using the super effective rock type move Terra Blast. Except I pivot again into Mary, who resists it. Finally, at the Pokemon I'm going to use to finish the fight, I Terrestrialize Mary, who has about a 25% chance to one-shot with Earth Power. Oh well. He's got enough health to tank another attack and finish off the champion assessment on the next turn. At this point, we have fulfilled the basic requirements to call this run a success. We've made it to champion rank. But, can we make it through all the rival fights in the endgame? Now, I was pretty sure that Clavel would be the end of me, since sometimes his Oranguru would start with Yawn, which I could retaliate with the super effective Crunch attack, but other times it would choose Reflect. And Gimli is the only Pokemon I had with no weaknesses to it, and Brick Break to shatter the Reflect. Abomasnow next was equally puzzling. Sometimes it would use Aurora Veil, even if Reflect was still active from Oranguru, and other times it would use the heavily damaging Blizzard attack. Not knowing which one he would do at any given time, I just kept spamming Brick Break until he went down. Next out was Gyarados, and this thing hits like a truck. In a brilliant stroke of luck, Golem dodges the initial Aqua Tail that was meant to kill Gimli, and is then able to outspeed and fire back with a Terra-boosted, super effective Power Gem that was just barely able to KO in one hit. With Amoonguss up next, Golem unfortunately didn't have any moves to really deal with it, so I swap out to Samwise, who would take either a Spore, putting him to sleep, or Toxic, poisoning him badly. So, ignoring the Chesto Berry he was holding, a single Brave Bird took out the Fungus, and in the face of Poltegeist, I swapped him out so I didn't have to worry about the poison. Golem took a pretty heavy Shadow Ball on the switch in, but was able to outspeed, taking it out with 2 Power Gems. This left only his ace Skeledirge, and Golem on very low HP. Golem was faster though, and had an 80% chance to roll high enough damage to kill with 1 Terra Boost Power Gem, and a 20% chance to low roll and wipe the entire party to Torch Song. And getting through that fight that was more luck than preparation, we enter the school with a deep breath and prepare for Cassiopeia. The big boss turns out to be our good friend Penny, who won't shut down Team Star without a fight. I start with Mary using Dazzling Gleam against her Umbreon, which does very little damage, but so does the incoming Dark Pulse. And after a few turns of back and forth, Mary emerges victorious. Penny sends out Vaporeon next, and I swap to Gandalf to tank the Aurora Beam that would have killed Mary. Her Hydro Pump crits for huge damage, while my Lightning Bolt does a good chunk itself. But Gandalf can't take another hit, so I pivot out to Frodo, whose Water Absorb nullifies the attack. I pivot back to Gandalf, while Penny uses Baby Doll Eyes to lower Frodo's attack stat, hitting Gandalf instead, doing no real damage, and allowing him to recoup some HP with leftovers. Now all of Penny's evolutions know Baby Doll Eyes to physically weaken her opponent. So to prevent this from happening, I built my team using exclusively special moves. Now once Gandalf has healed enough from swap stalling to take another Hydro Pump, I finish Vaporeon off with another Thunderbolt and get ready to face Flareon. By swapping out to Pippin since his water typing resists all of Flareon's moves, but apparently he can just dodge them too. Flareon does get off of Baby Doll Eyes, lowering Pippin's physical attack, but like I said, Surf is a special move, and isn't affected at all. Outspeeding and taking Flareon down, Jolteon, however, would easily be a match for him, so I swap out to Frodo, whose ground typing nullifies the incoming Thunder attack. Baby Doll Eyes doesn't affect Frodo's special attack Earth Power, and Jolteon goes down. Leafeon is next, and I keep Frodo in, easily tanking a Leaf Blade before hitting back to Sludge Wave. A second turn of this does put him down into low HP, but ultimately brings out Penny's ace, Sylveon. At this point, I swap to Golem, who can easily tank the incoming Shadow Ball, before getting off a critical Sludge Wave that also ends up poisoning her Pokemon, taking it out in a single turn and completing Operation Starfall. The next companion we encounter is Arven. Now Mary is faster than his Greedent and easily takes it out with a couple of Earth Powers. I predict Arven will swap to Cloyster next, who has a 4 times effective move in Icicle Spear, but he brings out Scovillain instead. After another Earth Power, Mary dodges a Fire Blast that could have killed him. Huh, I wonder if that's why he didn't bring in Cloyster. Anyway, a second Earth Power drops this one too, and he finally brings out Toadscruel? I swap out to Gimli, who gets an Intimidate off, weakening the incoming Power Whip, before terastallizing and taking it out with a single Play Rough. Garganical is out next, and since my original plan was to have Mary sweep him along with the first 4 of Arven's Pokemon, I take the free swap as Arven sets up Stealth Rocks. A couple of Giga Drains later, and Cloyster finally comes out as Arven's penultimate Pokemon. A single Giga Drain is enough to KO it and leave Mary at full HP, but he's not equipped to handle the boss dip, so I swap in Golem. A couple Sludge Waves later, and we shatter any confidence that Arven might have had. And with that, only one more friend battle remains, and Nemona starts off with Lycanroc, either scattering Stealth Rocks or getting some damage in with Stone Edge. But Gimli just takes him out with an Earthquake in either case. Orthworm comes out next, and I pivot into Gandalf to wall the Iron Tail and bait out an Earthquake attack, which Sam can just fly over. Holding the Life Orb from earlier, a single Flamethrower melts the Steel Worm at the small cost of 10% of Sam's HP. With Gudra up next, I swap back into Gandalf for real this time, setting up Light Screen to reduce the incoming damage from Muddy Water, while setting up to +6 Iron Defense. She does manage to get one accuracy drop on me, which I'm sure isn't going to immediately bite me in the ass. But Body Press doing damage based on my defense rather than my attack does kill Gudra, and I just do some Protect stalling against Dunsparce to get back a little HP with leftovers. Body Press takes out the Dunsparce, and after a close combat hit that I survive, thanks to my +6 defense, it takes out Palmod as well. Which brings us to Nemona's ace, and Quaquaval is faster than pretty much my entire team. So I pivot again through Gimli, getting an attack drop on her while soaking up incoming attack, and baiting out Aqua Step that Frodo is straight up immune to. He also resists literally every other attack she has. So I take the turn to use Toxic, which badly poisons Quaquaval. This means that while I use Protect to stall out my turns, she is taking ever-increasing damage from the poison. Frodo soaks up an Ice Spinner attack while getting in some extra damage with Venoshock before going back to Protect. Quaquaval is taking so much damage from poison now that any hit will kill, and she just has nothing that can kill me. So I hit Protect again, expecting it to fail, but it doesn't, and I just sit around and watch as her last Pokemon dies to Toxic. Speaking of toxic relationships, the 3 of us head down to Area 0 to meet up with Arven's dad, who turns out to be a psychotic AI bent on flooding the world with robotic Pokemon from the future. AI Turo won't just let us turn off the time machine though, so we gear up for one last Pokemon battle. Iron Moth isn't that big a deal as Pippin outspeeds and one-shots for liquidation. Iron Hands is out next, threatening to kill Pippin with a Thunder Punch, but Gimli takes it on the chin, using Protect to stall a turn to get some leftovers healing. I then pivot to Gandalf, and then back to Gimli, who drops an Iron Hands attack with Intimidate. By repeating this process multiple times, we're able to nerf his attack power into the ground before going on the attack, doing a little over half with one Play Rough, and after taking a severely weakened Iron Head attack, finishes him off with a second. This brings out Iron Jugulus, and I swap out to Gandalf to tank the incoming Flash Cannon, and taking a huge Flamethrower hit before one-shotting it with a Thunderbolt. For Iron Thorns, I read the incoming Earthquake, and swaps Sam in, who flies right over it, pivoting then to Mary to tank the Stone Edge that would have killed the flyer. Despite the hefty damage, I'm not that worried because Mary outspeeds and takes Thorns out with a single Earth Power. Iron Bundle comes out next, and I swap Gandalf back in, resisting the Freeze Dry attack that would have killed Mary, and going to critical HP from a Water Pulse, before finishing the futuristic Delibird off with another Thunderbolt. Now, Iron Valiant is AI Turo's ace, using the held booster energy to activate its Quark Drive ability, skyrocketing its attack stat. But Gimli resists the incoming Brick Break attack, pivoting then to Golem to blunt the Poison Jab that would have killed the Dwarf. Golem survives a heavy hit from Psycho Cut, but a single Sludge Wave is enough to finish off the Professor's team and save Paldea from the Paradox Pokemon threat. So, can a single pack of Obsidian Flames beat all of Pokemon Violet? Well, no. Mostly because there are some Pokemon in the set that aren't in the game at all. But that being said, it's not like I used my replacement Pokemon all that much, so maybe? I don't know. Try it out yourself and let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And be sure to subscribe to get notifications on future videos. I kind of like this series, and most of the people I've talked to about it have said that it's an interesting take on the Nuzlocke run, especially given the open world nature of this particular game. If you agree, hit that like button and help push these videos out into the algorithm and spread the joy. But that does it for me today, so I'm a head out, and I'll see you all next time. Bye!